Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm really excited for SCA to host this important conversation and to engage with producers. And hopefully tonight through this process, this is one more avenue and one more route where we gain feedback, have a good, robust discussion and debate about traceability, what it means for our industry, and how we can drive things forward for the betterment of all. I want to start by reminding everybody we're all here with a common goal. We may have different viewpoints and different perspectives, but I think at the end of this all, we really are all trying to produce the world's best beef, which is Canadian beef, in a manner that is confident and transparent for everyone and profitable for all those in the production chain. So keep that in mind as we discuss a topic that probably is one of the most debated topics that we've entered into in recent years in the beef industry. And I think through that debate, we'll have stronger and more productive outcomes than ever as we drive this initiative forward and really choose to deliver what is best for Saskatchewan beef producers. I want to start with why this conversation matters so much. This is our opportunity and one other avenue for you to communicate back to your association, for you to have constructive dialogue and debate with your directors, with your association, with us as staff. There are many avenues, and this is just one. We may or may not get through all the questions tonight that you feel you have. We may address the topics, or there may be items that you want to address offline. The office is always available. We urge producers, Saskatchewan producers, to reach out, to share your feedback, and to engage in this conversation. This is an important topic for our industry going forward, and so we urge and want to hear that feedback, all perspectives and all diverse opinions on this topic. As well, you have representatives representing you across the province. As producers, you elect your district representatives, and we urge you to reach out to those representatives and voice your concerns, voice your support. We want to hear it all, and I think it's important that we drive that message going forward in a manner that really is representing that diverse opinion across Saskatchewan. So we can't do that if we don't hear from you. And so this conversation is critical to the plan going forward of what that looks like. We heard loud and clear. We believe we listened, and this webinar, some of the actions you've seen from SCA is just a portion of the outcome of that, but we want to continue having that constructive dialogue and having that engagement from you as producers. So I think we all know this conversation is of critical importance. The Canadian beef industry is unique. We are exporters of a large amount of product, and I'll maybe, Jean, get the next slide to move forward. We know that we have a responsibility as Canadian beef producers to produce the best product we can, both domestically and internationally. But our unique role in the global marketplace of exporting 55% of cattle and beef that we produce puts an extra level of reassurance we have to put on our trading partners. And so we want to acknowledge that when we're looking at production and what we're doing as an industry, we know this intuitively, but it puts a responsibility on us as producers. And so that creates a dynamic that is something that is discussed at many tables and framed in our conversation as we go forward with why it is so critical to have that safe, secure product we're putting into the marketplace, whether that's domestically or internationally. And so it is really important that not just for our consumers, but for ourselves as beef producers, if we run into a situation where we have a disease outbreak, and some of us can remember when we were in situations with markets being closed, it's important that we expedite and be able to deliver for our industry as quickly as possible, access to our markets that we need to maintain value, to maintain business, to be able to conduct things profitably for our industry and drive things forward. So I think we want to make sure in that context, we're talking about traceability, but also disease preparedness. And disease preparedness is really the root of why this conversation was started way back in the beginning. And so throughout the evening, you'll see us put up some polls. Part of the way we're going to engage and interact with you is a few different routes. We're going to put up a poll to a few different polls, but we're going to start with one right away to get a sense for what are producers really feeling. There's many ways you want to communicate with us. Some of us don't hesitate to stand up and raise our voice. Some of us prefer to be to raise our concerns in a different manner. And so we're hoping to find many different routes on which you can communicate and get your thoughts across on the topic of disease preparedness and traceability. So Jean, I'll move to the first poll, which will get us started this evening. And that poll is in the vein of disease preparedness. And the question, I'll remind you that once you answer, you cannot change your answer. It is locked in. So the poll is now up. And the question is, do you believe Canada is adequately prepared for a disease outbreak? And I think this is an important question as an industry that we always have in the back of our mind. And in the conversation and context of a lot of the dialogue that's been happening in recent months, this is a critical question for all of us to think about from an industry perspective, from what we require and expect of our industry. So we're looking for you to answer now if you believe Canada is adequately prepared for a disease outbreak if a situation would arise. So I'll give you a couple seconds to respond to that poll. I see votes are still coming in, so hopefully everybody has a chance for that to work and interact in that conversation. So as you hopefully, Jean, I'm not sure if that poll is going to remain live for a while or if it is, we're going to close it. I think it's coming in pretty, I think everybody hopefully has had a chance to answer that first question. So someone was asking on the chat, I see, are you asking from a CFIA standpoint or an industry standpoint? I'm asking from you as whatever role you play in the industry, if you feel from your perspective and how a disease outbreak might impact you, do you feel that we're adequately prepared? So I'll put that back to that question that came in regards to the poll. So my results show that it's bouncing around a little bit still, Jean, but from 60% feel no, just over 60% feel no, you do not believe Canada is adequately prepared for a disease outbreak. And so just in transparency we are using these polls to gauge. This is an open dialogue. This is not something that we have the answers to all the questions, and there is no right or wrong answer. This is part of continuing that dialogue and continuing that discussion about how the industry feels and hopefully having input and conversation back and forth on where we need to head. So we started with really disease preparedness and that question about disease preparedness, because fundamentally when the conversation about traceability started way back, and I'm referring way back in late 1990s, early 2000s, when this system was first put in place, we talked about traceability, but traceability being put in place in the context of preparing for that situation of disease preparedness. So disease preparedness is, I think, what we all recognize we need to have and be aware of and prepared for. It's like an insurance policy that we need in place as an industry. We know that intuitively. And traceability is one component of a strong, robust disease preparedness plan. And I think it's important because sometimes we use those terms synonymously, and they aren't necessarily synonymous. Traceability is that ability to follow an animal in the true sense of the word from one point in the supply chain to another. And so traceability is really, that aspect of a system. Part of having a robust disease plan, no doubt, if we could track every individual animal in the system, could you have a stronger, robust disease plan? And that's how we evolved into this traceability conversation. And so traceability as a whole is really, a robust traceability system is that ability to follow an animal from one point to another. But why does that really matter? And we all have varying viewpoints and very passionate and very experienced from our perspectives, viewpoints on how or why do we need traceability? How can we do it? Can we do it? Can't we do it? We all bring very diverse perspectives into that. And so why traceability matters. And Jean, I'll get you to move the slide forward for me as we talk about some of the things that may be obvious, but also aren't so obvious to us from a traceability perspective, and why we're even having this conversation. Obviously, from a disease preparedness perspective, identifying and containing disease outbreaks is critical, and traceability matters in that. But that being said, it doesn't solve it. And I'm not here to say that if you have a traceability system, all things you have to have the entire system in place to be responsive. And so that is a critical component of a robust system, and traceability is a piece of it. The goal would be, though, with traceability and a strong traceability system, we'd minimize the number of farms affected in a disease outbreak. We'd protect producers' livelihoods and cattle values through a quicker response. The ideal response would be a quick response where values and markets were shut down for if at all, if needed, for a minimum amount of time. And not just in a responsiveness perspective. Traceability matters in a promotion and confidence building perspective, from international marketplace, from domestic marketplaces as well. International confidence in Canadian beef. Back when we started in the early 2000s with an individual animal ID system, Canada was leading the charge, and I believe we still are. We still have to keep driving forward, though. Like anything, our competitors are constantly striving to outdo us, and we should be constantly looking to raise the bar. These systems and the opportunities, technologies, innovations, not just in the field of traceability, in all kinds of aspects of the industry, help us to maintain our competitiveness and keep driving those markets, maintaining those markets, and building access to those markets. And so that's a critical lens as well to look at traceability through. So it's really important. There is no doubt this matters to us as an industry, that this is an important piece to discuss. The other component of traceability that we sometimes find is that understanding what a fulsome traceability system really is. We talked about the ability to track animals throughout the production system, throughout the chain, from one segment to the other. But really, what does traceability require? And how do you deliver on that? And we've taken steps towards that. So I'll get the next slide if we can move forward on what a fulsome traceability system and where kind of our traceability system lies. Absolutely. And if you're a producer in this industry and been engaged in this topic, you know these three things. You know that traceability involves individual animal ID, which was what we undertook in the late 1990s and early 2000s to individually identify animals. And we started with that barcode. And I always have to smile a little bit because I was just one of those green young people on the kill floor wiping barcodes so we could scan a barcode in a plant to evolve to where we are. But have we evolved to where we could be? And that's part of the discussion around traceability and the technologies we use today. So we have a very strong, highly compliant individual animal identification system. In many provinces, we have premise identification. In Saskatchewan, it is mandatory and has been for quite a few years to have a premise identification. And so that's the other critical piece, because you have to be able to identify the premises that have animals on them in a disease outbreak situation. And then that piece that has us all talking and really it's not an easy undertaking for this industry, even if we did choose to go down this path. If we did, it's a big undertaking, there is no doubt. And the questions around this warrant conversation and debate. And that is that animal movement tracking. We know in our industry, and I have said many times in many different conversations and contexts, that the Canadian beef industry is unique. Beef's unique to anything else in the ag sector because of our various segments in production, our fragmentation at times. That is our biggest advantage. It also creates challenges in situations like this, where we are in a situation where trying to track animals. That creates some very unique challenges in our industry because of that fragmentation, because of the number of movements an animal has and the transactions that take place throughout the production cycle. Again, not telling you anything you don't know, but critical pieces to consider as we drive forward in the conversation. So with that, we're going to move to our next poll, you guys, and engage a little bit more in, do you believe traceability is a critical component? We've talked about, we feel we don't have an adequate system. 60% felt, or just over 60% felt of the people took the poll that we didn't have an adequate system. The next question, and again, you can't change your answer, so once it's locked in, it's locked in. Do you believe traceability is a critical component of disease preparedness? Do you think we need to go down this road? And we can talk about, we're 2/3 of the way there in our province. You can take a lens of whatever you prefer here, but from the very simplistic perspective of, do you believe traceability is a critical component of disease preparedness? Yes or no? So we'll give you some time to answer that poll. And as those, I'm watching the numbers come in, we have had the question about the polls being left open if you haven't voted. Jean, I'll maybe turn to you for that. I am not sure if the past polls are left open if you haven't. Oh, yes, they are. Sorry, I just got the answer. They will be left open if you haven't voted. So things are not changing very much on that first poll anymore. But if you haven't voted yet, you can vote in a poll that we have already previously talked about or posed to you. So I see the numbers jumping around. This is an interesting dynamic of this opportunity to engage with all of you, is to watch the votes come in and really just sort of challenge ourselves to think about things from a, how do we prepare and how do we talk about a very challenging conversation going forward. So I'm going to give a few more seconds while people answer this question. It's pretty easy. It's yes or no question. So once we're locked in, we're locked in. So one last quick response, just note of, do you believe traceability is a critical component of disease preparedness? And again, there's lots of different ways to look at these questions, but the diversity and spurring on some conversation and thought is what our intention is. It's still shifting a little bit, so I want to give everybody a chance to answer as they wish on this question. So I'll give a few more seconds and then we will move forward. I can tell you as I'm watching them come in, I don't know if you guys can, I didn't ask Jean if others can see the results, but we're looking at 72% say yes, traceability is a critical component of disease preparedness. So we don't have an adequate disease preparedness is what the majority are saying. And yes, traceability is a critical component. Answers the question of why this conversation is so important. We have to find solutions to drive this forward, is what this group, again, this isn't everyone in the industry, but what this group would be, the message I would be taking out of some of this tonight. Again, we're going to keep gathering this information. SCA is not, this isn't a one and done conversation. So I want to reiterate that this is an ongoing dialogue that I think the industry, it's really important that we have. So again, you can keep voting if you haven't yet voted, but we want to move into where we're at today and kind of move forward into conversation and then get into the panel discussion and some interactive conversation. The current status of traceability, and if you're participating in this webinar and took the time to join us tonight, I suspect many of you have watched and been engaged to a certain degree, if not significantly engaged, in what has played out in the last few months and the concerns that the industry has expressed very loudly. SCA, of course, heard those concerns from producers loud and clear in early January and called for a pause to just let's take a pause, let's look at what needs to be done and answer some of those critical questions that producers have. No matter what side of the debate you sit on in this conversation, I think it's fair that questions and concerns be addressed as best we can, that we listen to each other and we come with an open mind so that we can really consider the best outcomes for all of us. Nothing's going to be perfect and it's going to evolve and grow. We knew that when we undertook individual animal ID in the early days. It needs to evolve and it needs to improve, and there's room for improvement. So it is critical to engage and engage in these important factors. SCA continues to try to strive to do a better job every day of listening to producers, capturing that information, and driving that message forward to the decision makers and the people who want to hear what Saskatchewan producers have to say and need to hear what Saskatchewan producers have to say. So CFIA put a pause in, of course, as many of you or all of you are well aware. And the industry undertook a really thorough discussion. SCA itself had 4 meetings throughout the province with really exceptional engagement, and heard loud and clear. And we continue to hear, and some of our directors will be joining me and talking about what they're hearing from producers across the province. We continue to hear those concerns. So SCA has issued a few statements. We make sure and we want to do as good a job, and we will always work to do a better job when it comes to communication. But we believe that disease preparedness is a critical piece and a critical importance to the industry. That's why we're driving these conversations going forward. We think it's really important about how we can deliver messages, what our producers are thinking and feeling, and address the questions and concerns. Because without the dialogue and debate, we don't know, and we can't answer or get responses to your concerns. And so it's really important that you engage with us those concerns, and it's really important that we get those responses. So our last statement, we really pushed for this continued dialogue. There's a lot of varying viewpoints on this topic, and one of the outcomes of that statement was engaging with CFIA in conversation. And so I'm happy to have Heather Brown joining us tonight, the National Manager of Livestock Traceability for CFIA. And SCA has been in conversation with CFIA, and CFIA just today made a statement and issued some conversation and has been very, has heard what we've said and has communicated that to us. So I want to turn the floor over to Heather for her to deliver some key messages from CFIA, after which Heather will will be stepping away because, again, I want to reiterate that this is a conversation for producers to engage with SCA. This is not a Q&A with CFIA, but we do think it's important that CFIA have the opportunity to deliver their message. So Heather, are you with me?
I am with you. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me, Sandy?
I can hear you, Heather. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Excellent. We hear you loud and clear.
Okay, and I'm sorry, my camera is on, but it doesn't seem to be appearing on the screen. So my apologies. So you don't get to see my face, but I did try. Thanks everyone for giving me a brief window of time to chat with you today. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the dialogue we've had with the Saskatchewan Cattle Association in the last little while. So we did want to come on and tell you that we have had this pause, as Sandy mentioned, and we wanted to move forward with a statement since the pause. And the main messaging is really that CFIA has carefully considered the feedback from all the industry stakeholders and associations that we've heard during the pause regarding the proposed amendments. And we've heard what the beef cattle producers are saying about burden and extra regulations and extra burden. And so we will not be introducing any new burden or any new sort of regulatory burden for cattle producers. However, with the traceability regulatory package that we're trying to move forward, there are other livestock sectors that the regulations affect. So the sheep and goat and cervid and pig sector. And so the CFIA does hope to move forward with changes that are supported by those sectors. For example, goats and cervids don't have even identification, and the pig sector wanted some changes to their regulations that already exist. So those are some examples. So our plan is to move forward with the regulatory package, but only bringing in requirements or regulatory requirements for those other livestock species, so goats, cervids, and sheep, and as well as some pig traceability amendments. We will not move forward with any changes for the beef sector that increase burden, but we do want to move the package forward and capture some of the needed changes for the other sectors. There was a statement, it just got posted today, so it's going to be put in the chat for you guys to link to. So it's CFI's statement on the regulatory package, and it details the specifics of what we want to move forward in the regulatory package. Of course, we are still engaging with all the sectors about these components and these elements. But that is our plan at this point, is to move forward with those elements after we finish our engagement with the other livestock sectors, but keeping any new regulatory requirements, any new movement reporting out of the package for cattle. So I just wanted to stress that we're not adding anything for cattle because we have heard you. And really, that's all I wanted to say today. And I wanted you guys to be able to go to the statement and look. And then, I hope you have a great discussion this evening. And please, I know that Sandy and the Saskatchewan Cattle Association will be collecting your thoughts and your questions and your ideas, and we hope to hear about them. And if you need any other clarifications on our plans, Sandy is able to reach out to us at any.
Thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate the statement and the comments that you made. The statement, the link to the statement for everyone who's interested in reading it has been put in the chat. So if you want to click on that link, I think that it is a pretty timely statement and something that I would urge producers to read through. And again, this is a dialogue. This is not meant to a dialogue for producers to engage with us. And so I appreciate Heather taking the time this evening with the opportunity to make the viewpoint of CFIA, and that they've heard us. And now it's our turn as industry. It's your turn to communicate back to us what you think and what challenges and issues we need to overcome. So we're going to go to the next poll. Poll 3, what is your biggest challenge with traceability today? So if you click on that answer now, of course, there are many options. You can list some of those common ones that we've heard, but by no means, if there's something other, feel free to put it in the chat. We will be capturing all of that and taking that as part of our, how do we deal with this issue, right? How do we manage them? What are your challenges? You only get one selection. So keep in mind, once you select, that is it. So it is your biggest challenge. I know there's quite a few, and some would like to select all. Well, put other and select and put all in the chat, or there's too many to list. But I think we can't just look at challenges. We have to look at, what is specifically needing to be addressed, right? What do you need to be addressed? What's your biggest challenge with traceability today? Because we hear loud and clear. And I am watching the chat and I see the concerns and the questions. There are challenges. There are a lot of challenges. For those who feel their voice is not getting heard, the questions aren't accurate, I'll keep saying it and I'll sound like a broken record. Please reach out. Reach out to your directors, reach out to the office, have the conversations, communicate what your concerns are. I think I would remind everyone, I think our goal here, all of us engaged in this debate who are willing to give time to this debate, really want are for the betterment of the industry, the betterment of the cattle producers and the cattle sector as a whole. And so that's the intent. And I ask people to keep that in mind as we drive forward. So what are your biggest challenges? And I'm going to give some time because this one maybe takes a little bit more time for producers and for all of us to really figure out what one you want to answer, but I'm seeing some clear responses. I want to say too, in the conversation, as we heard loud and clear from you, and loud and clear as the phones rang and things got very, very busy from producers. It is fair to express your challenges and to communicate those to all the decision makers, and then to press the industry and your leadership and your representatives for solutions. That is really what we're here for. What we want to talk about and get to is the solutions that can really make a difference for all of us at the grassroots level. I want to mention that there's a panel coming up here right away. We're going to have a few different directors join us and an opportunity for questions to be put forward. Those questions can come through the chat, through the Q&A. So if you have specific questions you want addressed here tonight, we may not get to all of them, but your questions will be captured and we will do our best to take them into consideration, address them if they haven't been addressed. And I'm the first to say, won't have all the answers, and I'm not going to expect the three directors who are probably going, oh crap, she thinks we're going to have the answers. I don't expect us to have all the answers tonight, but I do expect us to have a respectful conversation and to consider all these questions. If we don't have the answers, we will work very hard to find answers for you, but also to carry those questions forward for consideration. So like I said, this isn't an easy topic, that's for sure. I want to remind people that we want everyone to be extremely respectful. What the intent of tonight is, as we go into our panel discussion, the intent is to to create the opportunity for respectful dialogue and debate, and to also work towards how do we have a system in place and solutions in place for producers that meet everybody's needs, or the vast majority's needs. So I think that's really critical. Where we've got our, we've given you plenty of opportunity to open that, to do those polling. There was clear tag retention issues at the top of it when I last looked at it. If you haven't answered, please feel free to put your answer in. Those polls again will remain open. But we are going to move into the panel part of our evening and the Q&A. And I'm going to be joined, and the magic of technology, by Chad Ross, SCA Chair, Kyle Stewart, SCA's Communications Chair, and Wade Beck, who is an executive member and SCA's Governance Chair. So I'm going to give a minute for them to join me. I see Wade. Can you hear me, Wade?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yes, I can. And now I see all three of you. I see Chad, Kyle, and Wade. So I'm going to start off by letting them introduce themselves, a bit about who they are, where they come from, and I pose the question to them because this has not been an easy job of late, you guys. This has been a challenging chair to sit in for all of you. You've fielded a ton of questions and been in a lot of debates at times about this topic. So I pose the question to you: why are you engaged and involved in industry leadership? Why do you feel this is so important? So I'm going to start with our chair of SCA, Chad Ross, who is joining us tonight. Chad, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sandy, and good evening, everyone. Chad Ross is my name. I ranch with my wife, Crystal, at Estevan. We run a cow-calf operation with a small backgrounding feedlot. We've been in the business since 1906 in my family. We've been ranching, and I'm the fourth generation. And I represent Saskatchewan cattle feeders on the Saskatchewan Cattle Association board. And the question of, why I'm in this position right now, and it's right in our mission statement, Crystal and I's mission statement, that we give back to our industry, we give back to our community, we give back to our youth, and that's very important to us. That we've got to give back to the industry we're in to make it better. And so that's why we do that. And I guess it kind of runs in the family. My dad is past president of Saskatchewan Stock Growers Association, was president during BSE, actually. And so he knows hard what happens in a disease outbreak. And my great-grandfather was actually founding member of the Saskatchewan Wheat Pool. And back in those days, he was, it was very important for them to pool their resources to get a better price for their products. And so I guess it's in the family that we represent our industry, and we're very passionate about our industry here.
Thanks, Chad. I'm going to go next to Wade.
My name is Wade Beck. I'm the District 2 Director on SCA, and as Sandy said, I'm also Director at Large on the Executive. My family and I operate Beck Farms at Milestone. We run a purebred cow herd as well as a commercial cow herd, and we do a little grain farming as well. I became involved in the SCA because after years of sitting on breed association boards, I felt it was better to serve the industry as a whole and not just a small segment of it. And it's really been a learning experience, and I really like the challenge that it presents on a daily basis. And I think this is an important discussion, and it's a discussion that I think as an industry we will come up with a solution ourselves. So
appreciate that, Wade. Thank you. Kyle Stewart.
Thank you, Mrs. Russell. My name is Kyle Stewart. I ranch with my wife, Erica. We are between the number 1 highway and Lake Diefenbaker. We have a cow-calf operation, and we focus a lot on regenerative practices. I got involved with the SCA because when I first got into the cattle industry, I had a lot of respect for some of the people that were on boards, and I really looked up to how they could communicate to people, whether they were in agreement or disagreements, and the time that they committed to making the industry better for everyone. And so that was a goal of mine, to be involved and to give back. And also, in my humble opinion, you shouldn't complain about the job someone's doing unless you're willing to do the job. So that's why I'm on.
Very good points. Thank you, all of you. And thank you not just for being directors on SCA, but for taking the time tonight to be part of this and be the face of some of the directors of SCA. Of course, there is many directors, and every district and is represented well, and every director is more than happy to have conversations with you, I am sure, as producers across the province about traceability and hearing what your thoughts as producers are. So we just have 3 representatives here tonight, and we're going to start with some questions. I do want to say I'm as best I can. I'm not a great multitasker, but I'm following the chat, and I really the last couple ones I've seen are really good conversation. That chat we will be taking, as I mentioned, and really considering what you're putting in there. So I appreciate the comments. We can't get to everything maybe necessarily and talk about all these topics, but that is a good place to put some of your comments and thoughts in there as well. But you can also use the chat for questions directed to these 3, and really, or you can, as Jean said, you can voice if you want to go live. A little more challenging to do that sometimes, but if you want to go live, you can request, and if we have time and are able, we will be doing that. All questions we will take into consideration and try to field. So I'm going to start out with one, you guys. It's not an easy one, and it's going to let you go where you really want to go on your perspective from a traceability and this challenge that we've been faced with as an industry. But the question I'm posing to you is, what makes traceability an advantage or disadvantage on your operation? And feel free to talk from both advantage or disadvantage, one or the other, or both. But I am going to, because he called me Mrs. Russell and he knows how much I hate that, I'm going to start with Kyle.
Sorry, I always forget that.
Keep you on your toes, guys.
Something that, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. You.
So in our situation, we're fairly lucky where we don't have a lot of commingling. You know, all of our animals stay home. We don't go to pasture, and we don't bring a lot of cattle in. But in a situation where we're buying bulls in, and you know, that is helpful to have that traceability in case there's an outbreak of maybe a purebred breeders has a disease outbreak, or you know, just being able to know where cattle are coming from, the movement. That's talking specific to our operation. Like I said, we're very fortunate and we don't have a lot of cattle leaving and coming in, but that is where it would be helpful.
Chad, I'm going to go to you next. What makes traceability an advantage or a disadvantage on your operation?
Yeah, Sandy, thanks. And, you know, before I get into that, you know, we went across the province and heard the concerns of producers at the different town halls, and our directors literally, he's fielded hundreds and hundreds of calls from our producers from both sides of the issues. So this question kind of relates to both sides, because we've heard it. We've heard people that are dramatically against, and people say that we got to have it. And so, you know, in my operation, you know, and what I've heard from producers is that we cannot have regulation impede commerce, number one. And so that means that we cannot slow down on weaning day. We can't have people slowing down the weaning before the calves get on the scale, because that costs us money, right? We cannot have those types of things to impede commerce and cost us money. That could be huge costly for our industry. So regulation cannot impede commerce. Shrink, cattle health, all that type of thing can be a disadvantage. And so as we're looking at these issues, we got to find ways that we can have traceability that's easy for our producers and can get it done. It can't be onerous. It can't be costly, that type of thing. And we've got to have trust with our regulators. And so there's a lot of trust to be built back. And I've heard that from our producers, that we need to trust our regulators, that they're going to be there with us in the disease outbreak to make sure that we're efficient and getting that solved and isolated. You know, the advantages of traceability is it protects my business. I've got a multi-generational business here that I'm scared. I'm scared if we have a foot and mouth disease or any other disease that I could go out of business because of something that I can't control. And so it's hugely important to me to protect our business, that we do what we can as an industry to protect our businesses. And then, other advantages are, just some tangible benefits for our producers as we look at other technologies like GPS technology or what have you that could add value and give us benefits in our operations, whether we can tell when a cow's calving or tell when a calf is sick or, have other advantages along with the traceability.
Thanks, Chad. That brings up a lot of different pieces of this really, really diverse and deep issue, and sometimes overwhelming when you look at all the different avenues of what needs to be undertaken. But I'm going to go to you, Wade, next. But before I do, I want to remind producers and those participating that if you want to go live with the question, you can call in on the chat. So I will just remind producers of that. And I just lost Wade, as of course I was just giving him time to give his question. I'm going to not sure what happened there. Jean, do we have Wade? Or, well, if we don't have Wade, I will, guys, you're a two-man panel now. While we get Wade back, I think they're working on getting Wade back. So I'm gonna wait for that. But I want to Chad, I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about what makes or what does a robust system, what would it look like if we had kind of the Cadillac system, and how would it, and this is maybe not fair because people are probably not going to like, it's maybe not even attainable. But what do we need? Like, you talk about the importance and fear, and I feel that. I feel that fear, and I hear that from time to time. What do you think that system needs to look like so that some of those fears are put to rest?
Well, first of all, a robust traceability system, first of all, we've got to be able to identify and isolate a disease in hours, not days, not weeks, not months, like we've seen in other disease outbreaks here. We've got to be able to do it in hours. And what that'll do is it'll be able to isolate different areas within our country so that the rest of the country can resume trade. So, for example, if we have a disease outbreak here in Saskatchewan, southeast Saskatchewan, where I live, hopefully we can draw a bubble around where I live, and the rest of the country can keep selling beef, and in order to keep those borders open, and so that's ideal. That's ideal. If the complete border closes, which may happen if we have it in multiple jurisdictions, then we've got to be able to do our science fast, and that's the thing that we have to get done, is get the science done fast before the politics can start. And I've heard lots of discussion about the politics and that type of thing, and yes, that is an issue. But we have to do our job before the politics can start, and we can leave that up to our advocacy groups like CCA, and they can get on it and work on it hard, which they did hard during BSC. And then a robust system, we've got to have our regulators working with us and not against us. We've got to have our regulators being efficient and being as passionate about this industry as what we are. And quite honestly, we haven't seen that. And I've heard lots of examples of that. And so we need them to step up and to do a better job as well, along with our industry. So if our industry is going to do a better job, we expect them to do a better job as well. And also our CCIA, we expect them to be there doing the best job they can for us as well on the identification. So it's a team effort, and so that's what I feel a robust system looks like. And there's other countries that are moving ahead. Australia's got traceability. Brazil, Argentina. Just had a news release here this week about Mexico is engaging in a traceability. So other countries are moving ahead. And I get the question a lot of why should we not do it here in Canada when the U.S. isn't equal to us? And it's a pretty simple example, folks, that the U.S. can eat everything that they produce. They don't have the dependence on exporting that we have here in Canada. We export 50% of what we produce. If that border gets closed, we're in trouble. And where the U.S. they can work through it, they can eat their product, that type of thing. We can't. We have to export. So that's why it's so important to us to make sure that we can keep exporting to those countries.
There has been some discussion in the chat and conversation in the chat about, and it's maybe a comment more than anything, but I want to pose it as a question because I think it is something that we hear a lot of concern about about the burden to producers that traceability will place on them. And the comment that I'm seeing that I think I want to try to address a bit in this conversation or get your thoughts on, you guys. This is, again, I'll remind everyone, we don't have the answers. We're looking for dialogue and solutions and your opportunity to provide us feedback. But by no means do we have all the answers. So the question is that, or the comment was that many producers will go out of business if traceability comes into play. What is your initial reaction to that, either Kyle or Chad? What are your thoughts around that? We've saw in polls that, and Chad, you talked about your fear of disease preparedness. So let's talk about the burden of traceability and the belief that many producers will go out of business, or the comment that many producers will go out of business if traceability comes into play. Any comments or thoughts on that?
I'm just wondering where they're coming from, or is it the cost of having the technology to read tags, or what will cause them to go out of business?
So that's a fair question, Kyle. I appreciate that question back. So I'm going to put that back to those in the chat, or feel free again, if you want to call in, you can call in. But that's a fair question, Kyle, of where is that coming from in terms of the burden being placed on producers, and that you feel producers will go up. Many producers, many is what it says in the chat. Many producers will be going out of business if traceability comes into play. So I know some people may not want to speak live, but if you want to put something in the chat, feel free. Or if in the chat they want to ask, if you want to ask to go live, please do that. Chad, any comments on that? While we see if somebody wants to step up and talk to us about that topic.
I just like to say, we hear you. We don't want our producers to go out of business, and we don't want it to be onerous or burdensome on our cow-calf producers. And so that's why we put the traceability task force together through SCA. That will all be looking for industry-led results or direction in regards to traceability, and we don't want it onerous. This can be done with technology advantages. We've got to be able to increase our retention on our tags, or go to a different technology altogether. Maybe we can have our partners in the auction marts and marketers help us out with traceability, so it's not burdensome on our producers at all with technology. And I'm just throwing things out here, guys, but I hear you. I don't want this to be overburdensome for producers to the point where it is, and we will make sure that doesn't happen.
So I will follow up. We got a bit of comments. Keep it coming, you guys. I'm doing my best to keep up, but I'm going to go to the response. It's coming from many producers are over 60 and will not benefit from traceability. The cost is high and there is no benefit to producers. So that was the comment, Kyle, that came back in. So.
Okay, yeah, I guess I must not understand the cost. But I mean, and I'm speaking on what I know, and that's my operation and people who I talk to, and scanning tags or going on CLTS to enter birth dates or move in, move outs. I don't see how it costs money, or sure, it costs hours, but looking at the big picture of having a traceability system, I think is advantageous. I don't want it to be any more burdensome, like Chad has said already, or investing in a whole bunch of technology. But as of right now, I don't see how that would be the case.
Excellent. I will add, There's been a couple more comments, so I'm going to read those, and then we're going to move on. And Wade, welcome back.
Yeah,
The
rural
other
connectivity
comments,
is-
just in context of this discussion. Case in point, rural connectivity is an issue.
Absolutely.
I'm dealing with my own tonight, Wade. So Kyle and Wade, I'll let you just catch your breath. We're talking about costs to producers. The other comment, Kyle, was new producers are starting from scratch. That's another group that stated that this measure will sink them, right? So that this will be cost effective from a new producer's perspective as well. And then cost in labor and owning the equipment was also a comment. Time equals money is what I'm hearing. Here, and I'm scrolling. There's a lot. I'm going to go to a comment that I want to read here. If we as producers are not prepared to take measures to help ourselves, as in minimizing the negative outcomes of a disease event, possibly resulting in a border closure event, do we have a right to expect the Canadian taxpayer, i.e. the government, to assist us through the resulting economic consequences? So, guys, I'm doing my best to feel all the questions, but that comment came in. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that while I sort through.
I can just talk about, as we've been lobbying in regards to the policy framework here lately, and Sandy, you've done a lot of work in that, and where Saskatchewan comes in regards to that, and one of the pillars that we've talked about at SCA is helping our producers with technology. Our farmer neighbors, have come leaps and bounds in regards to technology and what they're using in their cropping operations, and our industry in the cattle industry is fell behind because of that, and now that there is some margins in our business, which is greatly appreciated, I feel that that businesses are looking at technology in the cow-calf business, the cattle business, that can help us in our industry, in our businesses, to make us more efficient and that type of thing. And so we feel that that would help if government could assist, in those types of situations. And so, we're looking at that to help us out. And already there's, if you're a verified beef producer, you can get half of your readers paid for. And readers run from $3,000 to $5,000 from what I'm seeing. You can get really cheap ones for $1,500 if you want. So, it's a cost for sure. And then, time is something that, time is something that we all got to deal with. But a lot of us do run our cattle through the chute at least once a year. So
Thank you. Another really good question that I think is a valid one that I'd like to hear your comments on, and that is, someone said, "Can I ask what is wrong with the traceability system as it is now?" Wade, are you ready to step into that one from your perspective? Kyle, do you want to step into that one from your perspective? What is wrong with the system, or is there anything wrong with the system today?
Yeah, I think, like Wade said, tag retention is a big thing. How can we have a really proficient traceability system if our tag retention is what it's at? And then also we need to be able to trust the governing body of it. We need a better relationship there, I feel.
That leads me very nicely into my next comment that I want to read, because I think it's a pretty valuable one, and one we hear often in various contexts. This comment come in: you can have the Cadillac of traceability systems, but the problem is CFIA is still at the helm of it. You can drive a Cadillac, but if the driver can't figure out how to get the car and drive, it doesn't do much good. Chad, do you want to speak to that comment?
yeah, no, that's a great point, and I agree 100%. And at Saskatchewan Cattle Association, we've been pretty hard on CFIA and how they've been reacting to in this TB investigation, what they put our producers through, and that type of thing, and they have to do better. And we're calling for some changes there, and we'll continue to put pressure there. That I agree totally that we can have the Cadillac system in our industry, But if they don't show up and are efficient and can get the job done, then why have it, right? So I agree. We've got to have all pieces of the puzzle together, working in order to protect our operations.
And I mean, we didn't even plant this way that you're having so much rural connectivity issues tonight. But here we are with Wade trying to do as best he can to connect with us in a challenging environment. While I'm scrolling through, I had a comment, and the problem is every time you guys all, this is great dialogue. I think this is exactly what we had hoped for tonight to be. So I wanted another comment, Chad. This was specifically directed to you, and so I want to first give you a chance, but then others as well. The comment is that 15,000 VBP rebate goes really fast and has to be split between species. Can we make the case for a large increase and for it to be species specific rather than shared? Sorry, it jumps when rather than shared between species.
So just to clarify the question, so if a person has beef and sheep, for example, that they'd have to split that between the two species. Okay. No, I appreciate those comments. And yeah, we can ask and push on your behalf as hard as we can. And so we're just in the beginning stages of getting our comments on the policy framework. The things we've been asking for BRM programs that help our producers out in different drought situations or that type of thing. And, but yeah, we can continue to push for your ask and just talk to your directors on what's important to you that you want to see in the next policy framework that you can use in your operations.
Which is why I want to thank everyone for participating tonight and engaging in this, because these are the things we need to hear and know, and the feedback we need to get. I'm going to read another comment that came in that I think Kyle, you may want to comment on is, I don't think the problem is the economics of implementation. The government will end up covering costs on those with enough pushback. The problem is that information is power, and the power/information is going to an untrustworthy organization. Even when it goes to a third party, it is only one court order or new law away from being taken from us. I've dealt with CFIA during an outbreak. They already have way too much power, and the producers have so little recourse. Data is power. Information is power, you guys. How do, as an industry, so there's a lot in that comment and I appreciate it. How as an industry do how do we start to protect the information that we have? And do we feel, you guys, I'm going to pose it to you because I can't pose it to the 100 right now. Do we feel we're adequately doing that, or do we need to do better there? What are your thoughts around that comment and statement?
I think we always need to be cautious on that data. I think we need to be mindful too of what we're worrying about, though. One comment that I heard quite often was that with these regulations that were proposed, the government just wants to know how many cattle we have. Well, I think if they really wanted to know, they could just look on Google Earth and start counting. But I mean, there are definitely things to be mindful of with information and to not, be willing to give it all up. But we've also got to be reasonable with what we're expecting. And I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Chad, anything you want to add? And I just want to check, Wade, can you hear us or can you talk? I know you're not on camera.
Yeah,
maybe
I just
you
shut
can
my camera off.
chime in even though we can't see you.
I'm hoping that would help with the situation. So, yeah.
Can't hear Wade. Chad, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, that's a really good comment. And I've heard that a lot in the discussions is the trust of their data. And I understand and I believe that our data is our data. It's not anybody else's data, and we need to protect that. And so, CCIA is industry-led. It's an industry board that looks after that. And, find out who your CCIA members are on those boards and ask the questions that information is yours. It's private, and that we're being looked after and represented, and we're doing the same here at SCA. We are asking those questions on your behalf too, because we believe that is private information, and only to be accessed if there is a reportable disease, and that's what it says, and that is what we believe should be.
So
Can you hear me, Sandy?
maybe this one I think is a good question. It's pretty direct. It's pretty, you can answer short or you can answer long. Do you really honestly think that if something breaks out that it can be contained in areas when cattle move across Canada within 12 hours? Okay, I'll say I'm totally posing a question from me to you, Kyle. Do you think there's a system robust enough to protect us?
I'd be about the worst person to ask on that because I don't know anything about technology. But ideally, if you think about Alberta between High River and Brooks, they're killing 8,000 head a day. I mean, there's 200 plus liners rolling around with cattle going to be killed. If I always think about that, and if you had the perfect system, what that is, I have no idea. But if you could pinpoint a cow in one of them 200 loads rather than shutting down all 200, well, that'd be pretty neat, or have a lot of advantages there.
Chad?
I actually posed that question to a friend of mine, Dr. Greg Douglas. He's on here tonight, and asked him that question. And right now, no. Right now, no. It's not possible. It's going to take time. It's going to take time with the traceability we have, and in those types of situations, time is not what we have, and so anything that can speed it up as much as possible is in our benefit, and that was Greg's thoughts as well. And again, we've all got to come to the table, all of us, to make sure that we do the best we can for our industry.
So Wade, you're back. We're going to try to engage you. Do you really believe that there's a system, that is the question I posed to Chad, that we can create a system robust enough, given that we move cattle the way we do, that can protect us? And then I'd follow that up with, do you think, is it worth it, you guys? Is it worth it to try? Because we're not going to get it perfect. But so Wade, we need to fix rural connectivity for Wade, if nothing else. I think he brought up some very good points. And there's clear themes coming out here and in the discussion as well in the chat. I will remind everyone that pose your questions there. We're almost out of time. We've eaten up our hour and gone over. But I've seen really good comments as I've tried to just touch on them going forward, and we will keep looking at them and take them back. I'm looking at I'm reading this one off because I haven't even had a chance to read it. But most disease issues aren't just appearing in herds. They show up when new cattle are brought into the herd or in community pastures. I feel like these new proposed ideas of traceability are looking too hard at the areas that aren't problem spots, and the idea of reporting the movement of animals between two pastures that only see that. And I will say, I saw this back in, and I was going to get to it in the heat of a comment, but someone brought up, we talk a lot about foot and mouth. And I can't remember exactly their question, but I'm going to pose mine. Are we doing enough? Because if it's in, that's a problem, right? Are we doing enough to keep it out of our country, out of our at our borders, and I know we've talked a lot about this in various conversations. Do we need to do more than just put the burden on ourselves? Do we need to look at our agencies that are protecting the country and what's coming in? Kyle, Chad?
Kick me out.
Yeah. Chad, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite understand what we're getting at here, but yeah, that's a great point there, Kyle. And I've often thought about that. We take our horses and ourselves to our neighbors' branding, and that's just the community we have. We help each other, we work together, and it's a great community to be able to do that. But we've got to be cognizant of what can happen if there is a disease outbreak, and maybe just keep track of where you've been, what you've done, that type of thing. And as far as on our own operations, the regulations didn't ask that we report every movement between our own pastures and that type of thing. I think what they're asking is just that we keep track of animals that come in to our operations, whether you buy a bull, if you buy some bred heifers, usually we got to brand them anyway. So yeah, record those tags, even if you just record them within your own operation, so that if you are that person that gets the call from CFIA, you can say, yep, these are the cows that I did buy. This is when I bought them, that type of thing, just to assist, to help in the situation. And that's just good record keeping to be able to do that.
Yeah. I think this has been a really great discussion. I've tried to get to as many comments in the chat as I can. We, like I said, and I'll say it again, we'll be going through this after the fact to review things. I will reiterate to everyone that they reach out to directors, to the office, to have this conversation and dialogue. This is about finding solution for our industry, and continuing the conversation and making sure your voice is being heard. While Wade is back, we're just going to wrap up with some final comments from each of you, and then we've got another poll, you guys, so don't go away. But Wade, I'll let you go first, because who knows how long we'll have you for. Any last comments you would just want to leave in your experience? You've fielded a ton of calls. You've had a lot of conversations, Wade, as the others have. What kind of final thought would you like to say in this discussion?
I guess my final thought is, as we look to improve on everything, as we do in all our operations, we always look to some way to improve. We need to improve traceability. So whether that's tag retention, whether that's rural connectivity, as I've had trouble with tonight, new technology, we need to look to that to improve traceability. But we don't need new regulations to improve traceability and to produce improved disease preparedness. Another thing, and I don't know if people talked about before, but another big tool of disease preparedness is the ability to keep the diseases out to begin with. Our border agents need to be very vigilant of, because that's how foot and mouth is going to come. It's not going to come from Canada. It's going to come from another country. So that's a very important issue that we need, as an industry and as a group, we need to be aware of. So, that's something. Traceability is one thing, but there's so many other things we need to improve as an industry. And I think the SCA's, we're looking at it all right now, and we're looking to improve anything that we can. But regulations, in my opinion, aren't going to help us. So that's my final thought. And I apologize immensely for the trouble I've had tonight. So sorry.
We couldn't have delivered the message of rural connectivity any better, Wade, but those comments I greatly appreciate. Thank you. Kyle, final thoughts?
Yeah, no, thank you. And Wade, you said a lot of my comments, but I'll just reiterate that we heard loud and clear that our producers did want these regulations. And so we were vocal, we were loud. Saskatchewan was a leader in saying that we cannot have these regulations without a lot of improvements in a lot of other things. And so we were strong in saying that on your behalf. And disease preparedness, as Wade said, is it starts at what comes into our country. And so we've also been lobbying our MPs and that type of thing. And our MPs have been talking to Canadian Border Service Agency on upping their standards, getting more sniffer dogs, making sure that meat doesn't come in that's going to cause that disease. In the foot and mouth outbreak overseas, it was a piece of meat that come in on an airline that went into waste that ended up in the pig pen, which spread to all over the country. So that's how easy it can happen. And so even us as producers, as we're going overseas, if we visit a cattle operation, throw your boots away, clean your clothes, whatever. Don't skimp on that. And if you have employees that come onto feedlots or whatever, make sure they're doing the same. So we've been advocating for that huge, and traceability is just one part of that, and we need to improve a lot of things within that to make us better as an industry as well.